friends, it's Lala. This is the latest edition of my overly specific book recommendations. If you don't know, this is where I go beyond just a genre or subgenre and give you recommendations. I pick something really overly specific and I give you 5 book recommendations that have that thing or are that thing. I recently made this video called Things I Love in Books, and I listed a bunch of things and asked you if you wanted an overly specific book recommendation video on any of those things to let me know. I got a lot of different requests, so they'll all be coming, but today is island books, and while curating my list of favorite books set on islands, I realized the majority of them are YA, and the majority of ones I love also involve some type of magical element, or what I'm calling fantasy light, whether it be a little paranormal or a little supernatural, magical realism. So I've chosen 5 books that are essentially set in our world, have contemporary vibes, but also have this other element that I love so much. Some of these are quite popular. Some of them I've talked about a lot. Some of them you may have never heard of. But if you love any of the books I mentioned, there's 4 other recommendations within this video. I think a reason that I love island books is I like the seclusion factor. I like when there's a limited cast of characters and it's kind of a forced togetherness. They all are just in this one place. You can't leave, and it creates a really ominous vibe a lot of times. So the first most fantastical would be Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. This book takes place on Sawkill Rock. That's what the island is called in this book. The basic premise of this is that there's a monster who regularly comes and steals girls. It's kind of like, I would call it a dark fairy tale-esque book. We have 3 main characters. They're all teenage girls. They're also all queer, which is a bonus for me. But we also kind of follow the POV of the island itself, which is really fucking cool. We have one girl who is new to the island. We have one girl who's the police chief's daughter. She's been there for a little while and is trying to solve this mystery. And we have one girl whose family has been on the island for a long time, and she's essentially serving the monster. These characters are all so well realized, and their dynamic is perfection. They come together, they're pit against each other, and the book has very smart and ambitious commentary on the real world. The themes involved in here are just epic, and essentially it's just some badass sapphic girls taking down an island boogeyman. Like, it's incredible. Next up is the book that you are most likely to already have heard about or read. I've talked about it a lot. I know it's been talked about a ton in the book community, and for good reason in my opinion. It's The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This takes place on the largest of all the islands we're talking about. It's based in Taiwan. So not so much the small town island feel, but it still counts, and it's incredible, and it has like my favorite magical element. A lot of these books, just based on my reading preferences, deal with a lot of heavy topics. This is quite a hard-hitting YA. It follows a girl named Lee whose mother has recently committed suicide, and she's obviously dealing with a lot of grief to do with that. At the same time, it's an extra like punch in the gut, because while her mother was taking her own life, she was having her first kiss with her longtime crush and starting this new relationship, and she feels a lot of guilt and grief. And the magical element is she believes her mother has turned into a bird, and this bird is kind of guiding her and is the reason she ends up in Taiwan to connect with her maternal grandparents for the first time, connect with her culture, and get to know that side of her family that her mother has always kept from her. She believes her mother is guiding her there, and learn about the history of her family, which she's never known before. This story absolutely ruined me. I sobbed throughout it, and it was just perfection. I mean, I think the amount of mental health discussion was perfect. I think the subtle amount of romance was perfect. The internal dialogue, the flowery writing, a lot of these books have flowery prose, just based on, you know, the magical elements that exist in them. So overall, really enjoyed this. Highly recommend. I'm gonna switch over to the most similar book, and that one is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. This also involves an island and a bird. This fictional island is called By the Sea. It follows a girl named Georgina who belongs to a family who all have magical powers. All the women in the family have some type of magic. It's different between everybody in the family, but the common thread is that they all manifest those powers by the age of 18. Now, she is quickly approaching that age and has seen no evidence of these powers and is struggling with that. She has a twin sister who plays a huge role in this book because she has her powers, and she's also kind of disconnecting herself from her sister. She's off on her own. She seems really sad, and Georgina is trying to figure out what's up with her. Her family also runs this inn, and people come to their island every year to see this like 400-year-old bird who visits the island at this time every year, and they come from everywhere to bird watch. However, the bird has yet to arrive, which is also very strange. So we have all these elements working together. It's a whimsical setting, and it's also quite heavy. Unexpectedly, it deals with some hard-hitting topics. A lot of it revolves around rape culture. And she's also in this new relationship with this girl who has visited the island to see this bird, and their little romance is one of the most precious things ever. So if you're looking for something that's like coming of age and also magical and also adorable and also hard-hitting, this is perfect. Next up, I'm going to talk about the book that I do not have in my possession, which still makes me sad. I need to pick up a copy. I originally read it as a library book, and it's called Hurricane Child. It's written by Kaysen Callender, formerly writing under Karen Callender. This takes place on Water Island in the Caribbean, and technically it's middle grade. All the rest of these books are YA, but I think it 100% has a crossover audience. In this story, we're following Caroline, who is a Black queer 12-year-old girl just discovering so many things about herself. She's going through a really difficult time. Her mother has abandoned their family, and her classmates continually bully her. This book touches, it is middle grade, so it touches on these things in an appropriate way. It deals with, oh man, racism, internalized homophobia, colorism. There's a lot of general microaggression against her, and religion is a big portion of this. The magical element of this is that she was born during a hurricane, and she's kind of known for having bad luck, and no one wants anything to do with her. And she sees things that no one else sees, like this woman, this spirit, all dressed in black that we follow throughout the book. A lot of this book revolves around a new girl at school from Barbados who she has a crush on, and they kind of grapple with their feelings towards each other throughout the book. And overall, it was just really powerful. It's one of my favorite middle grade I've ever read, and it just shows like how deeply children can feel. And lastly, my final recommendation for island settings and magical elements. This is the most paranormal, spooky, ominous vibe, and that's The Rattled Bones by S.M. Parker. In this book, we follow a character named Rilla, who lives in Maine. Her father is a lobster fisherman. She has been on his boat since she was 4 years old, and he unexpectedly dies, and she takes over supporting the family. She has to be really independent. There are other fishermen trying to take over her area. She's obviously dealing with grief because she lost her father. She's dealing with a lot of pressure. She has a boyfriend who is really needy and it's not the healthiest relationship. And in amongst all of this real life stuff, she sees this island. It revolves around Malaga Island, and she sees a ghost girl on the island. This island is supposedly uninhabited, and she knows nothing about it, but she goes to visit the island. She wants to find this girl and figure out what's happening. And in that, she discovers a boy who is also researching the island. This book revolves around real history. This island is where a bunch of people were run out of years ago. It's history that nobody wants to talk about because it's people who were forcibly removed from this island and just want to erase it from history. And it was so thoughtful and really slow, if you like that sort of thing. It's so atmospheric. This ghost girl's songs travel across the waves, and her and this boy discover things together. I appreciated that this wasn't romance centric as well, and overall I just found it really interesting and well done. So those are my 5 recommendations. If you have any other island recommendations, please put them down below for me to find, as well as anybody else watching this who wants more island mystery magic stuff, which I know is so specific, but I actually couldn't think of many adult books that involve this. So if you have any of those to recommend, that would be cool. There are definitely other YA slightly fantastical books involving islands that I didn't like, or I haven't read yet. So maybe someday I'll have to do an updated recommendations. Anyway, I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you read some of these, or you've already read them. Tell me what you thought down below, and I'll see you later. Bye.